Welcome to Get Wisdom Live with Carl Mollison and Brian Kelly. What if God was also a co-host? What if the historically rare ability to question God directly and get profound answers back has been rediscovered? What would God say to today's sophisticated but deeply troubled world? Get Wisdom Live is here to share those answers with you. Here is Carl Mollison and Brian Kelly. Another episode of Get Wisdom Live. I'm Brian Kelly, along with Get Wisdom founder and director, Carl Mollison. This month, Creator teaches more on the workings of karma. Karma is kind of one of those bottomless pits of information that you could explore probably for as long as you want to take a breath in this life, Carl. It's a very complex thing, but it's very important because it affects all of us at all times.
Well, like the song says, karma makes the world go around. Or was that love? I think the reality is more the former, and love is a force that has karmic implications and consequences, mostly for good. And there's many other emotions and intentions that create karma for ill. So this is going to be a bigger picture view, or sort of kind of stepping back in your questions to look at the larger canvas and some of the things about karma on a large scale,
Yeah.
and sort of fill in some blanks for folks, I think.
Yeah, well, my intent was also maybe to really better define boundaries about what karma actually is and does, and put a little more definition for people to understand, and that's important. We're advancing knowledge on this, so I think this will be an interesting show for people. You asked Creator, arriving at an advanced understanding of karma is not easy. We assume that everything in this universe begins and ends with the creator of this universe. Recognizing there are other universes with their own creators and even levels of consciousness above creator, we assume that the law of karma in this universe also begins and ends with the creator of this universe. Is this true? We've heard creator say that even creator is subject to the law of karma. Is that just holding oneself to one's own standards? Or is creator literally accountable to those layers of consciousness above creator? Who creates creator? Who keeps creator accountable? There is a strong skepticism surrounding self policing and holding oneself accountable as the only means of law enforcement. What can Creator tell us about where Creator's karma begins and ends?
All right. Well, this is Creator's answer. Yours is a bold question, to be sure, one that many in past eras would not dare to ask, confronting Creator as it does with a kind of intimation we might get called on the carpet. And it might not be wise to even trust us, especially if we can create a karmic dilemma and then are then subject to a higher level sanction. We do not take offense because we understand your desire is a sincere one to understand karma on a very deep level, and it is through asking many probing and hypothetical questions that oftentimes allows us to reveal hidden truths. This is the challenge we put before you, after all, as a human being, to use all of your inner resources and creativity, to never rest with current knowledge, but to go deeper, to question everything, and especially to look at things from every angle as the surest way to find something missing. We can perhaps reassure you, and perhaps not, by telling you that your karma begins and ends with us. It is our system of oversight and monitoring in the current law of karma that is being applied to all beings in the visible universe. It is our paradigm for helping, particularly those of you in the physical plane residing within the Milky Way galaxy, because you are uniquely bound by the relaxed constraints of free agency and free will only. And that causes a delay in receiving a karmic comeuppance for wrongdoing as well as possible blessings from going above the norm to bestow loving kindness. You have come to learn this is a mixed blessing because the relaxation of the rules, which is really more a relaxation of the consequences, while the rules have stayed the same otherwise, has allowed the rise of evil because perpetrators can indeed get away with quite a lot, at least for a time. And that might be many lifetimes given the dynamics underway. The first physical beings in creation with high intelligence had extraordinary wherewithal across the board. But this they have squandered, and it creates a great imbalance because while they have tremendous power and reach for doing things in the physical, they have lost their connection to divinity and thus cannot be given the benefit of divine blessings and oversight, inspiration, and guidance to the same degree that you can as a human being. So while you are looking for answers through a deeper understanding that there might be more layers of oversight and a higher and more refined level of karmic rules and implementation that perhaps could be invoked or an appeal made to step in and end the craziness, we must tell you it is we who are in charge solely here on this level. There are things we answer for to consciousness above our level, as we have shared with you unreservedly, out of respect for who and what you represent. After all, you are a part of our consciousness and deserve to understand your dilemma. But we do have absolute authority over our domain. And while we consult with other sources of high intelligence and standing, they will not interfere in what is going on within your universe. While we set this universe in motion, it was with the intent for it to be successful. And we have done many things to keep it supported and to bring you along as our emissaries to deal with the problem of evil from within the physical plane, which is the only way it can be set right, because this is a test of the paradigm underway. If evil triumphs, the paradigm will be a failure, and then all bets are off with respect to whether the universe might be recalled and started over after a reconfiguration yet again. In the meantime, we are simply telling you that we have integrity, we are honest, and we are unwavering in our conviction when we choose to do something or need to hold something back. For example, to honor human free will by not interfering, even though it might save you. These are tough, tough lessons. And that is part of the exercise that must be endured for you to triumph. We have also told you that from where we sit, we see you as being successful in winning out over the darkness in the end. If you keep going and adding to the healing underway, you are initiating from the human side in the physical plane that will provide the answer for solving the problem of evil and healing everyone and everything in harm's way. So while you have a burden and an obligation both to ensure your success, we have created that pathway for you and are championing your cause with many levels of support behind the scenes, enough to keep you going, but with you still in a leadership role to initiate the positive steps needed for your success.
Well, I thought this was an outstanding answer, and it was everything that I hoped in asking the question. I got the answer I wanted, Carl. I got all the detail, I got all the nuance, I got everything I wanted out of this question. Creator came through and delivered a, a, a touchdown on this one because it covers all the bases and it's not equivocal. I mean, we answer to Creator. Creator's responsible for setting up all the ground rules in this universe. Creator does consult with higher intelligences, but they're not somebody that we can appeal to. It's between us and Creator, and I'm okay with that.
Well, it's plenty enough
Yeah.
given the authority and power of the divine, which is essentially infinite for all practical purposes. So the question is whether our leadership and our origin is that of a loving being, something we can resonate with and feel a part of and not feel cheated somehow or slighted or maybe at risk in being subjected to something that has differing values or standards than we feel personally. And it's more the opposite. To the extent we're good people, it's because we're divine. And,
Right.
and to get better at being a human being is to get more godlike in a
Yes.
true sense of being in alignment. So
Agreed. Yeah.
yeah. So, and I think that's what creator is claiming. And the proof's in the pudding. We have to discover that for ourselves as we do. We're kind of all floating around in as loose cannons in a way, and we can choose what we want to believe and not, and everyone does.
Yeah.
And that's part of the experiment. What if everyone's turned loose? They can decide for themselves what to do, where and when and how, and see what happens. And if people stay in divine alignment and still have that sense there is a God and that matters and it means something, then we'll come out okay, is what God is telling us now.
Yep.
And so that's maybe not shocking to the devout religious who have just kind of plodded along and just assumed everything is right with the world, and that's fine. It's hard to get back to that. If
Yes.
if you've never been there, it's
Right.
hard to get there for the first time.
And Creator reiterates that we have to take our steps to invoke the divine to bring about the desired outcome. We're in charge down here, even though Creator set up all the ground rules. We're the ones who have to faithfully execute them correctly to make it all come out the way we want it to. So
Yeah,
there's,
and this is, I think, one of the hardest things people have had to grapple with, and certainly listening to the information we're bringing forward,
yeah,
because people think God's running everything, God's deciding everything. You
right.
know,
That's quite
God
a
willing, this will happen, and God willing, that will happen, and so on. And it isn't up to the divine because of this free will paradigm. It's all important because it frames everything, and it's the structure of everything that's going on now. So we have to
absolutely.
reckon with it.
Yes, we do. You ask Creator, we know that creation of our universe did not just happen once, that there were universes that came and went before this one. The Hindus have the word kalpa to describe one universal cycle. And there have been innumerable kalpas. Sorry, we've learned that many, if not all, of these past universes had quote free will projects unquote, determining their longevity and ultimate fate. We've learned that between universes and during the planning for the next one, that changes to the law or laws of karma are explored, debated, and ultimately settled upon. Lessons from past kalpas are applied, and hypothetical untried approaches are also explored and perhaps installed. Is this the only time that the laws of karma can be adjusted, or can the laws of karma be adjusted and calibrated at any time? And if so, by whom?
All right, and creator answers. Once again, you are coming to the source you need to consult because all that happens stems from us, our choices, our decisions, and our implementation. We honor free will and free agency quite precisely, and you might see it as being arbitrary and unfeeling when there is wrongdoing and much pain and suffering underway. But that is unavoidable if there is a choice between allowing human freedom and the opportunity you have to advance as a group of soul based beings through gaining strength and developing your knowledge and wisdom to surmount great difficulty. In order to be a proving ground, once underway, we needed to let things play out to a clear endpoint. If we change the rules in the middle of the game, much of what has taken place cannot be counted. And this could undermine the entire enterprise when we need a clear endpoint for success or failure. And that would be compromised by making an exception that could possibly short circuit reaching a firm conclusion if we were to do a last minute save in that fashion. Because of the tremendous intricacy and interdependence of the countless interactions as well as influence across many, many lifetimes or timelines, to mix and match those influences, with some being a consequence of older energies and some being moderated by an adjustment to the law of karma, would create many new uncertainties and disjointed interactions, and in effect, create much energetic discord with unpredictable consequences. This is why we've already rejected suggestions to modify the rules by adjusting the law of karma to help rein in the actions of the interlopers more certainly and effectively. While that can be done, it would also change the rules for all in your future and would end up restricting your reach as well, when you would benefit from retaining the current level of karmic oversight once you have healed and learned the lessons of all of your prior karma. That is underway. And in effect, that hard won learning and growth will have been squandered if we change the rules and it ends up muddying the waters to create doubt about the future. So, no change will be made to the law of karma unless we have recalled the current physical universe and intend to restart it with a changed configuration. We hope this does not happen because it would mean you will have to start over and go through many of the same challenges under the new set of rules in order to prove it will be successful, and that any challenges from a rise of evil will be solvable by those in the physical, at least with divine help. That is underway now, and it would be unfortunate to risk it all when you are so close to winning the contest underway.
Well, this is certainly the answer that I anticipated Creator would deliver, because we've gotten, bits and pieces of this kind of answer, from over the last 7, 8 years of Get Wisdom. There's different channelings that deal with this to some extent. But I thought it'd be nice to to have a succinct answer that was directly on point. And Creator once again delivers, Carl.
Well, and it's an optimistic answer, which is heartening to
Yeah,
to hear that we're close to winning the contest underway.
absolutely. But the contest has rules, right? That's one of the things important to understand. And while Creator says that, you know, he has infinite power and can change the rules in a realistic a sense, but he's not going to. And you could say, well, just because you have the ability doesn't mean that you have the license. And we've already explored in the first channeling that Creator follows Creator's own rules. That once Creator sets the rules down, Creator's going to follow them. And in this regard, the rules of karma are one of the things that Creator has said more than once, more than in just this channeling, that once they're set before a universe gets launched, they're not going to be adjusted. So take that to the bank, put it down as a ground rule, and we can move forward with that, Carl.
Well, we are in it for the long haul, that's for sure. And that's largely behind us. That's encouraging too.
Yes, yes. You ask Creator, the Hindus recognize the existence of the, quote, lords of karma, unquote. Are there such beings? If not, is that a corruption? If they exist, what exactly is their role? Is their job to determine the laws of karma themselves, to enforce the laws, and to come up with creative solutions to meet the implementation/enforcement needs determined by karma? What can Creator tell us?
All right, Creator says, like much of what is in religious and spiritual lore accumulated through the ages from many prophets and seers, there is truth as well as some distortion in this description. What the Hindus perceived intuitively was the existence of a very complex level of controlling influences that were separate from the divine proper, but nonetheless holding great power and decision making authority over the fate of human beings with respect to prior doings and the influence of other beings under an overarching set of principles whose existence mandated having rules to follow. So the perceptions there are lords of karma is more a metaphor describing the workings of the law of karma because it is a quite powerful influence on anything and everything to some degree and quite frequently, and is separate from our direct influence. Such intuitive perceptions have given rise many times to an interpretation there are multiple deities, when what is really happening is that we are the single deity in charge of all you know about, but have other forces that are extensions of our consciousness serving various roles of oversight and divine management. That includes a large cohort of angelic beings and many, many light beings who can assist at times with divine missions and a series of laws that bring order in governing many dimensions and types of energetic forces that are analogous to the laws of physics you understand from your science. Those are, in fact, divine laws being exhibited and bring consistency of function and a predictable set of properties into existence. So, in actuality, much of the divine rule book, while created by us, works on its own, and the energy for it to do so is a built in part of the system. In the same way, you are divine and an extension of our consciousness, but have autonomy to do things on your own, according to your own choices. The laws are much more uniform and predictable in their behavior because they are set up that way to be a kind of regular basic foundation and reproducible set of properties. While there is consciousness built into every level and property of existence, much in existence is dispassionate and will follow strict principles, but for divine intervention. That is why what power you have lies through partnership with us, because we can extend your reach far beyond what you can do on your own, particularly as a physical being in your incarnation as a human.
Well, I like that sentence. Much in existence is dispassionate and will follow strict principles but for divine intervention. So divine intervention is our way to get around the rules, but the rules are pretty doggone strict. And I think Creator's also saying here that karma, you can think of karma as like a kind of physics, or perhaps a kind of metaphysics. What do you think of that, Carl?
Well, yes. I mean, this is all a metaphysical universe because it encompasses everything, seen and unseen, which is the dilemma.
Yeah.
Here we are again, back to the fact we're disconnected in a state of ignorance largely, and we suffer because of it. And that's why that suffering gets in our way, and that enlightenment is not only the acquisition of knowledge and a better understanding, which we're seeking here,
Right.
but a healing journey. And
Yes.
the need for it is because of the disconnect and the rise of evil. So here we are. That's the big picture.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think the understanding that you're dealing with dispassionate forces is these are basically forces you cannot appeal to directly. So if you want help, you have to go to a power that you can appeal to, and that is the divine. So yeah, keep that in mind. You ask Creator, we have learned that a great many noxious and unpleasant species of plants and animals have been created throughout the Milky Way galaxy and eventually imported to Earth by the extraterrestrials to be a scourge to humanity. We've learned that the raccoon is native to the Anunnaki planet Nibiru and was created to be a karmic response to their predatory behavior. Given the almost 5 billion year existence of the Anunnaki civilization, approximately how long ago was the raccoon created? We know the raccoon steals, fouls, and lays waste to provisions and dwellings of sentient beings. Even with modern control methods, they are difficult to manage. Who designed the raccoon? Creator, the lords of karma, or karma itself? Can Creator briefly summarize exactly what Anunnaki transgressions necessitated the need for the raccoon? What can Creator tell us?
All right, this is Creator's answer. We can tell you that the raccoon was introduced into the Anunnaki world fairly early in its existence. And that was because of wrongdoing on the part of Anunnaki leaders who were taking advantage of their authority and wielding their power unwisely over fellow beings. So there were times when, in adjusting to their existence because of their free will, they could exceed the boundaries of fairness for selfish reasons, just like government leaders in your world of today can be authoritarian and totalitarian in wanting power and control over their citizens, and as a result, keep them suppressed and subjugated. So the behavior of these mammalian pests was a parallel to many of the Anunnaki themselves, who would cut corners, cheat, and steal to get ahead. The intention of introducing such species was to provide a teachable example of the consequences from misconduct, both from the standpoint of the victim as well as consequences to the perpetrator when the raccoons began to be treated as pests to be exterminated. This may seem like a very crude and even harsh consequence for poor behavior, but keep in mind we had to follow rules of engagement and honor their free agency and free will to make their own choices and live with the consequences until finally there was a pushback from the law of karma having been attenuated and delayed, so there would be a fair amount of leeway in the system. This leeway was taken advantage of by the Anunnaki and abused, and that set in motion their downfall from increasing corruption and fall from grace, becoming quite out of alignment. So the raccoon was our creation, not the work of a committee or the law of karma. The collection of divine beings and types of energy governed by their laws, including the law of karma and its power to influence things in the physical, are all an extension of our consciousness and do not have the wherewithal to create life or life forms.
Well, I am very grateful for this answer. Creator doesn't mince words and really lays it out there that the creator is responsible for creating, designing, and creating these beings in response, excuse me, in response to a karmic dilemma that was created, as well as within the rules of engagement set up, within the defines of the laws of karma and the free will project. So this is a great answer. I think it clears up any ambiguity about who's responsible for what, and that's refreshing to know, Carl.
Well, I think so, and it solves the mystery people have asked down through the ages. Why is the world so filled with terrible things?
Yeah,
You know, predatory creatures that might eat you, scourges of all kinds, things that bite, things that infect, things that destroy your rations, because they'll get into your pantry, they'll get into your crops and eat them, and
yeah,
on and on and on. And you can even go to the seacoast and enjoy the beach, but as soon as you get in the water, well, there's sharks,
yeah,
there's stingrays, there's all sorts of aggressive and deadly things. And
yeah,
so what's with that? And a lot of people have asked that. I've noted that all along the way.
yeah,
Why
yeah.
is so much of the earth's water salty and that kind of thing? This is all traceable back to interlopers, and they brought much of this scourge here. So it started with them.
It's an interesting question, and we have to ask it sometime. Is this the most scourged planet in the galaxy? not because of creators' actions, but because of the interlopers' actions. They're the ones who brought all this stuff here. And there's
Yes.
such a huge variety of it that it has to rival any kind of similar collection elsewhere in the galaxy, I have to imagine. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Well, it's an interesting spectacle because creator is saying here, just with this example of the raccoon, which is a relatively mild predator compared to maybe great white sharks,
right.
but still, it's a scourge and a menace and a nuisance. And but the idea of having a kind of a backlash for the divine intention, to teach the predators a lesson by introducing creatures with those characteristics to point out how nasty that is and how it's not a good idea
Yeah.
because it ends in death, you know. And then they take those things and weaponize them
Yeah. Yeah.
and then turn them loose on others. So this is free will in action. People don't always get the message. They don't always learn the lesson and will compound the problem many times. We do it ourselves through life after life, not following divine principles, and then our karma grows and grows and grows, and then we get really slammed at some point. And that's what's happening to many, many people.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, interesting thought that occurs to me about the raccoon too is that it teaches a lesson about trust because their initial appearance is they're cute, right? They don't look as nasty as they can be, and there might be a bit of trust that you would put forward on that, and then they turn around and violate it later on. So it's an interesting dynamic.
Well, and I think the reason for it, and that's been described. I don't have the exact wording in my memory at the moment, but creator commented on this very thing somewhere along the way, that the fact that some of these creatures are elegant in their design and even beautiful is because they are actually divine creations.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So why not add something that's a little bit of a balance to show the possibility?
Yeah. Yeah.
So everything good can be perverted,
Right.
but those perverted things may have a good side to them and may point at least towards the reality. There is goodness somewhere if you seek it.
Well, it can also help as a kind of a package to help teach a very specific and profound lesson. And one of those is absolutely trust. Trust is a key focal point lesson. And so it's kind of a lesson like, you need to be on guard. You just can't allow first impressions to rule how you interact with
Yes.
with reality. So I think that's a good one. US creator, we know the dog and cat have been repurposed from predatory wild animals to becoming loving domestic companions while retaining some features of their predatory heritage. The horse, on the other hand, does not appear to be repurposed at all, but in fact purposefully designed both for Earth's ecosystem and to be a direct helper companion to humanity. Was it designed for the first seeding of humanity and survived since then? Or was it introduced or reintroduced before the second seeding? Was it truly designed for Earth, or was the design borrowed from other worlds? Or was the horse seeded by the same coalition that seeded the second round of humans? What can Creator tell us about the Earth history, initial creation history, and karmic history of the horse?
All right. This is what creator tells us. As was the case for all the predator and pest species currently living with you on your planet, which were introduced by the interlopers to be a scourge as a punishment for humanity. The horse was an extraterrestrial species, but from a loving world that was functioning well at the time of its creation, and it served in much the same way as enjoyed by human culture, being a perceptive and cooperative companion. The horse was used in this interstellar world as a source of energy and pleasure, both, and actually was enjoyed greatly by the beings of that world who had an ability to communicate intuitively and thus could foster a quite high level and close relationship that was mutually satisfying and rewarding for both species, even while providing a service to the higher level sentient inhabitants of that world. The horses of that period found it quite rewarding. So it was a mutually beneficial relationship in all respects because the horses, in turn, were treated well by the loving beings who were, in turn, benefited from their cooperation. The introduction of the horse in the human world was a repurposing of a good idea with a proven track record, and is but one of many, many things that were done to prepare the world for human habitation in building a loving nest with creatures of all kinds to support human life and a long lived civilization so you could thrive and prosper living off the land and its environmental bounty. While humans were reconfigured prior to being launched in the second seeding, the horse did not need any major changes because it already had the inner capability and flexibility to serve humanity, and its karmic history in serving other sentient beings was advantageous and not a liability. There are many horses with karmic woundings at the hands of humans who became corrupted. So there are many historical abuses of horses at the hands of human beings. And that is part of the karmic legacy for humanity needing healing because you have been perpetrators at times when out of alignment by abusing animals around you.
Well, this was another satisfying answer that answered some curiosity on my part. I would suspect that a lot of the animals that we have are probably repurposed and brought from other worlds, mainly because Earth is a newcomer to this galaxy, at least, the current round of it. The galaxy is, what, 14 billion years old, and we've, you know, we've been around for 200,000 years, humanity. So it wouldn't surprise me that a lot of the animals that surround us and support us are also repurposed and maybe just really imported from other worlds. The same way the
Yeah.
noxious species were, but with this sense, with a good purpose in mind.
Well, and to just touch on conventional thinking, this is the reason there are gaps in the fossil record.
Yeah. Yes.
These things didn't all evolve here.
Right.
There's no such thing as the evolution of one species into another, truly. It doesn't really happen. Things degrade more than they improve. So those differing species were created as individual species and not necessarily even here,
Right. Right.
but elsewhere and in vastly different uh, times.
Yeah. Yeah. So just a new wrinkle to the whole puzzle.
Well, that's why this is the big picture.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more amazing than we think.
Indeed. Indeed, it is. You as creator, there is karma of the individual, and then there is group karma. Noxious species are clearly designed to be a response to group karma involving innumerable individuals and even countless generations. As such, it becomes a kind of permanent feature of the environment and landscape. And then there is the problem of a solution designed for one group being weaponized and used to ravage other groups and planets that don't deserve such exposure and infestation. While true that it's the actions of the extraterrestrials spreading such species that are the cause, what about the involvement of the creator or creators of the species itself? Does creator and or the creative team share any karmic responsibility? If so, how is that handled?
All right, this is Creator's answer. Here we get to explain in greater detail the true meaning of what we told you earlier, that we follow our own rules, including the law of karma. What this means is we are in this with you. We are equally culpable for the existence of wrongdoing, from setting things in motion that may end up going badly. So, this means we have a karmic stake in things personally, because it is all traceable back to our energy in some way or another. It is true we are not physically vulnerable as you are, and so will not have direct unpleasantness like you do from your fragile physical vulnerability to experience pain, impairment, and death. But all the adverse things that happen have a liability for us because they are moving in the wrong direction, using energy for ill instead of good, and thus creating a problem needing a solution. And we can always see quite clearly that in the end, that problem will circle back to us inevitably and will be our ultimate responsibility to reckon with. So, in a very practical sense, when we created you to yet again have a new group of beings to tackle the problem of evil, having seen several prior iterations fail to meet the challenges of the free will paradigm, we knew this would be upping the ante because of the prior failures and the ever increasing and looming backlog of negative karma accumulating within your galaxy. So while it is you and your human companions now in the fray and on the front lines, because the only way out of the current dilemma is through divine intervention, we will need to help support things in a way to bring about a solution through our energies to a significant degree. That will truly call on our utmost capability to anticipate the future needs and orchestrate a vast healing enterprise capable of turning the tide and saving the day before things end in failure. We can tell you that many of our plans have fizzled out and ended up meeting a dead end because of changing conditions and circumstances and the need to continue honoring free will choices, even of the interlopers supporting the darkness. So, all of this time through human history, we have helped support you in protecting you from annihilation. But that has been a holding action and means that only additional healing burdens will need to be reckoned with down the line. We welcome that challenge because we are accountable and intend to meet our obligations to do all that is necessary to make things work out. But because this is a partnership, you must do your part as well. And because we do not control that, we are as much at your mercy as you are at our mercy, and having to show restraint and not wield our full power. We must let you be in charge and in the lead always, even though that makes things much more difficult for us. We regret nothing and look forward eagerly to the tasks ahead and the challenges they represent, because your victory will be ours as well when it comes about.
I look at this answer and I think to myself, wow, it really highlights the partnership that's in play between creator and us, his creations. And I like this sentence also. We will need to help support things in a way to bring about a solution through our energies to a significant degree. So creator is saying that based on creator's own accumulation of karma, so to speak, that creator is going to have a significant divine response in order to play everything out and have it come to a successful conclusion. So we can count on a significant degree of divine intervention from what's creator is saying here. So that's hopeful.
Well, and I think we'll hear more about the fact that this is what we're building with Get Wisdom, that the healing progress that we're making through the protocols we've developed is creator's plan. I mean,
Yes.
it is that specific and that certain. And this is the thing that can work, and nothing else truly
No.
will do it because we're under the gun. We're in the crosshairs of serious opposition by
Yes.
the forces of darkness. But we have a solution, but we need to turn the crank from
Yes.
our side, and then creator will come in response to the leveraging and empowerment we built into this healing. And that
Yeah.
is what's going to make the difference to get that divine power working for us.
We've heard from day one this was a divine level problem. So, but we need to invoke that divine level solution. That is the task in front of us. You ask Creator. Creator is concerned with the spiritual growth of the individual and even species. But karma looks geared to not be concerned at all with that agenda. Rather, it simply responds to energy perturbations in a literal tit for tat fashion. Karma is not concerned either about a mission life underway, and if there is an opportunity to introduce a karmic response, it will simply do so in a kind of mechanical, automatic way. Does any cancellation or attenuation necessitate a divine intervention? What can Creator tell us?
All right, Creator says, what you are describing is the status quo and how things operate. It can only be this way, given that what you are discussing is a functional, energetic, regulatory mechanism designed to be consistent, perfunctory, and largely automatic through a self balancing and regulation built into its very functioning. The law of karma is designed to be the great leveler, to bring the universe back into balance whenever there is an energetic discord. It is much like the thermostat controlling a furnace, so the level of hot and cold in the environment can be brought into a comfortable balance. So the analogy would be to override a cold spell, one can appeal to us as a higher authority to turn up the heat for a time and compensate for something out of balance that you cannot take care of on your own. The reality, of course, is there is much you are unable to control or influence directly, given you are confronted with a huge level of darkness with malevolent intent that has you in the crosshairs, intent on your annihilation, in fact. That is a lot to manage and overcome. You will indeed need divine help. So it is best to get used to the idea you need a partner in life with capabilities beyond yours. The more you involve us in your day to day affairs and practice inviting us to take part and being aware of your higher level needs and how to go about enlisting our assistance, the better off you will be, the more effective your lives will become, and the brighter your future that will be created. Humans, for far too long, have thought of us as distant, uninvolved, disengaged, and perhaps uncaring, so that a divine intervention would be a true large scale miracle, and perhaps a long shot, quite unlikely to happen. That is exactly the wrong way to view things. And that view only exists because you have been manipulated to be disempowered, to doubt our existence, assume you're on your own largely, and might only think of us in a dire emergency as a last resort and a faint hope. That is a prescription for failure. Living in the highest and best way would strive to do the opposite. Keep us in your day to day thoughts and involved directly by invitation in everything you take on. It is through building such muscles to communicate and partner with us directly that you will have the inner wherewithal to turn to us when times are truly tough and have the confidence to invoke a divine intervention capable of saving the day. That is where things are heading. It is time to get ready. You will need to practice for what is coming to make things work out.
I think in a very interesting way, this is actually a commentary on agnosticism in the sense that, atheism believes there is no God whatsoever, whereas an agnostic would think that, yeah, there's a God who designed the universe, set it up, got the engine started, and then walked away. And now it's all self functioning. And in a way, it kind of is, because Creator intimates here that the law of karma really is dispassionate. It is a law, and it's a great leveler, and it works by rules. And that, it doesn't care about other agendas, right? It's really just if it sees an energetic imbalance and an opportunity to bring balance, it will. It doesn't care there's a mission life going on. It doesn't care about the spiritual growth of the individuals involved. That's not its concern. It's simply following its own mandate. And so that's kind of an agnostic outlook. But the agnosticism stops because it doesn't assume that there is a personal God that can intervene to change all that. And we're that's what this answer is also saying emphatically, is that we're here to be appealed to because we can intervene directly to save you from the dilemma of the laws of karma.
Well, and the very role model of the great spiritual leaders, you were starting this out with the question about people in difficult circumstances and lives, and some of the track record here of humanity and those who stood out. And if you look at the martyrs, the saints, those who rose to positions of prominence in their spiritual leadership, they all suffered for the most part. There are exceptions who were living blessed lives, but most had ups and downs and some extremely difficult challenges. Look at Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So the world teaches karma is inevitable, and one of the reasons is we've been here before and things didn't go well. That creates more karma. But the purpose of our existence is to work through the past karma that is accumulated everywhere.
Yeah.
That is what is meant by solving the problem of evil. It's all the negative karma throughout the ages and the eons before humanity even existed.
Yeah.
So that's getting a little bit ahead because that's a long-term exercise. But we're building the wherewithal for that to change here and now. And
Yes.
that healing work will save humanity and save everything else in the bargain. That's why we're here, not to skirt around the issue, not to escape karma, but to face it and
Right.
correct it and bring things back into alignment. That is what will bring a victory and a success for the enterprise.
Agreed. You ask creator, there is the karmic problem of returning a response to a perpetrator with a dramatically different makeup from the initial victim, triggering the karmic debt. For instance, the same shove delivered to one individual is an annoyance, but breaks the bones of someone frail. How would this debt be handled? Does karma wait for the perpetrator to be born frail? But even if frail, a psychopathic personality might absorb such a shove very differently than the initial victim, even if the broken bones are the same or similar. Then there's the dilemma of the first victim having a karmic recurrence of the shove themselves. So do we have both the perpetrator and the victim getting the same karmic response? Or does the perpetrator simply return as another perpetrator and the victim as well, again, as a victim? What can Creator tell us?
Creator says life is very complex, and accordingly, the karmic consequences, entanglements, and paths to a rebalancing and healing will be every bit as complex and varied. So, all of your proposed scenarios may well happen, even for the downstream consequences of a single traumatic experience. It is commonplace for perpetrators and victims to find one another again and again in the course of a lifetime, and perhaps link up as parents and child, husband and wife, boss and employee, and so on, or return in a series of lifetimes in such close proximity so they can reenact a karmic drama in the role of perpetrator and victim. The parties may even switch roles as a way of working on that karma. So the perpetrator gets a taste of their own medicine at the hands of their victim, now a perpetrator, turning on them and harming them in a similar way. The law of karma might seize upon random events in proximity to sources of danger and cause accidents to happen as a karmic consequence that matches in some way or another a prior experience. So one time it might be harm coming from a personal act of hostility, and another time an environmental hazard that causes an impairment or inconvenience that is a karmic penalty nonetheless of comparable magnitude and impact in harming a person. The law of karma is an intelligent mechanism for meting out energy that is a match to prior events in some fashion and will take into account all of the conditions, circumstances, and participants. Even if many, many individuals played a role, there will be ways that it arranges to provide an impetus to heal what has come before, no matter how complicated. If you think about the implications here for such a multi party participation in something that ends in tragedy, each and every one of those individuals will be linked karmically to that event in the Akashic records and its energetic signature. And so all will be coordinated together in complex ways, and all will need similar healing for their role in what happened to them and what they caused to happen to others. So it is very likely that there will be much going on that is unpleasant as a fact of life for many, because history has caused so many difficulties for so many individuals. And all of the perpetrators, including the dark spirits and extraterrestrials, will need to be arranged through the law of karma to once again do their thing as an opportunity to work on reducing the negative impact, if possible, through healing. This reality is quite sobering because it means once you engage with someone in an event that causes harm to anyone, you will not escape it and its inevitable return, courtesy of the law of karma, to bring you once again together with a similar event and even the same players many times. There is no way out of this. And in fact, one of the traditional but poor choices for those who commit suicide is they will return in a new incarnation to a new lifetime as someone likely to be suicidal once again. So there is no real escape except through healing. That is the business of the law of karma, to create imperatives for everyone.
One of the things I was thinking about, and I've had some insights just as you were reading this, Carl, is that different souls can have different temperaments, and I think those temperaments might persist from life to life. So that if one is inclined to be violent, that inclination probably follows them from life to life, and if they're inclined not to be violent, that inclination probably also follows them. But then karma has the task of trying to balance that out somehow. So if you're a parent, if you're an abusive parent to a child, for instance, karma might arrange so the next lifetime the roles switch, right? And the perpetrator is now the child, and the parent was the victim. And maybe the circumstances are set up where the parent itself is not abusive, but it's an abusive surroundings, or maybe they're living in poverty, and the life itself is abusive, even though that particular person themselves is not terribly abusive because it's not their temperament, right? And then maybe it gets worse because the child then abuses the parent, right? So in a sense, the attempt to karmically balance things off fails and just makes things worse. So there's so many ways you can explore this. You can go on forever. So, but it's an interesting thought exercise.
Well, and it's complicated too, because we are different beings and different histories will dictate how we do and where and when we make improvements and how we grow, at what pace. And we're all essentially working on our own history. And that creates a lot of challenges because there are often mismatches. And then once you get in a dance with the perpetrator, or with a victim, if you're more inclined to do an act of harm, you're going to go around with them until you figure out how to do it better.
Right.
This is what karma is for, to teach us those hard, tough lessons. And it
Yeah.
does that very well. It takes a long time for us to learn the lessons, but the principle is a sound one because
Yeah.
you won't get away with anything.
Nope. Nope. There'll be plenty of opportunities to attempt to rebalance, and karma makes sure of that. We're told, and we can see that when you look. Yes, Creator, regardless of the workings of karma itself, we have learned that divine intervention is the means to heal, avoid, and/or reduce and attenuate karmic debts and dilemmas. Can Creator share with us how empowered prayer, the Lightworker Healing Protocol, deep subconscious memory reset, and divine life support bring about the desired divine intervention to heal karmic difficulties.
All right. And this is what Creator tells us, and hopefully a reasonable summary of how to solve these problems. Creator says, you are listing here all of the fine, divinely inspired tools brought about through your channel and working diligently as a scholar and researcher for years now to refine their capability to heal, and quite deeply. For that is what is essential to solve the problems faced by humanity and all the beings throughout your galaxy who are faced with the workings of the darkness and at risk of annihilation at their hands. All of the horrific karmic trauma the interlopers have inflicted on you throughout the ages is coming to a head. The only thing that will solve the problem and save you from annihilation at their hands is to first get them to leave for a time so you can more quickly heal and escape from the physical plane before they return and destroy you. This is no small task, but if you can do the first part, it will mean you can do the second. Reckoning with these interlopers, because they are uniformly psychopathic predators, will prove your mettle and enable you to go the distance, because you will have proven the power of using these fine healing tools to reckon with that enormous karmic backlog that is looming over you and marking you for destruction by keeping you in a weakened state. Through divine partnership, you will have all the extra power you need for a reckoning, a rebalancing that will be effective in winning the day. Prayer alone will not be enough, and even empowered prayer. You must become healers and ask for healing. If enough human intention that was knowledgeable about the true nature of your situation were brought to bear, the world could be cleaned up overnight. But you are so far away from that level of awakening and a gaining of insight because of the great limitations of the average human being and level of ignorance. The only hope is having enough to speak for you. That is what is being provided by the Get Wisdom Enterprise, to bring together healers for training in these higher level techniques. So the aggregate of healing effort underway will be enough to tip the balance and ensure your victory against the darkness. We see that happening if you continue working and adding to your numbers through recruiting other humans who are open to spiritual healing in a true sense. Heretofore, the spiritual movements and formal religions, one by one, have become corrupted and diluted in ways they become more a kind of holding action and make work project to give a false sense of security, even as the noose is being tightened around your necks. It is not easy to awaken many to such an unpleasant truth, especially with a heavy layer of mind control manipulation to create many false beliefs and a high level of complacency. Those few still awake and able to see evil in action now have a way to respond effectively to counter those evil forces with divine healing. That is the only way you can win. And if you choose that path, you will be successful. You will have our help if you invite our assistance.
And you can learn a lot more about inviting the assistance of the divine through the Get Wisdom Project. Visit us at getwisdom.com and check out all of our services: LHP healing services, LHP training, divine life support. There's all these things have been listed here. You can check them out at the getwisdom.com site. The homepage itself lists summaries of these services available, and there's plenty to explore, Carl.
All right.
Very good. Thanks again, everybody. That's all we have for this month's Get Wisdom. We'll see you next time.
Be well.